Welcome back again. It is now May 26th, 2017. This is Ramon, bold like a leopard, and we're dealing today with the crumbling state of the Democratic Party. And I kind of did an earlier version of this video. I wasn't so happy with it because I thought, who knows what will happen this week. Maybe there could be some developments that could actually make this story even more crisp. And something did happen. Now, let's frame it. There's a lot of events going on in the Democratic Party. There's basically a civil war going on. And I think that there's actually more than two sides. There, of course, is the traditional Democratic side, as in the centrist Democrats, the ones that are pro-banking, pro-lobbyists, and they're socially liberal. Then you have the Bernie Sanders progressive crowd. They themselves are broken up into two different factions. There's the ones that they're nominal progressives, the TYT network people. The guy on screen, his name is Michael Tracy. I think he's a little more of an independent streak, but nevertheless, those people, they're super progressive, meaning that they're against, for example, the Hillary Clinton faction, but at the same time, they can't totally come out against corporate lobbyists. This is kind of a gray area here. Who's on whose side? There's Jimmy Dore, who I often critique. He's more of the hardline side. There's H.A. Goodman, who I actually like his work a lot, even though I'm not a progressive. He's an amazing journalist and muckraker. You got people like Tim Black, also on H.A. Goodman's faction. Those people are the hardliners. They're against any compromise with the DNC, the very people that are screwing over Democrats of all stripes and basically selling out their ideals. And let me state this very clearly. My position on the Democrats is very simple. I don't care if they fall apart. However, I do want there to be an opposition party, at least something that can come and give real criticism to the administration. In this case, we have a Republican administration, obviously. The problem is that the Democrats aren't giving actual criticism. They're focusing on scandals that are inventions of their own paranoid delusions, and sometimes of their own desire just to scuttle the Trump presidency at its inception. Okay, the Russia story, if that's a focus of the Democrats, is going to have them losing again and again and again and again. Most progressives, in fact, I think are starting to catch on that this story is yielding nothing. And in fact, they do have real positions on a lot of things. They have positions on pharmaceutical industry. They have positions on fracking. They have positions on universal health care, of course. Everybody talks about that. And universal college education. And, even if I don't agree with the majority of those positions, you have to give them credit for putting up a program that people can relate to. It doesn't matter, in my mind, if people disagree with me. If they can put points forward where they are able to frame their worldview so that people can actually have an alternative, I'm totally fine with that. Now, we're going to watch this video where it's titled, "Bernie Joins Rob Quist, Is the Political Revolution About to Sweep Montana?" We're going to watch part of it. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. It's because, it kind of gets repetitive. But here goes. What's happening is that there was a race in Montana to replace the new Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, and it just got settled today. More on that later, but here goes.
Rob Quist is seeking to become the next congressman from Montana, and tonight he is being aided in those efforts by none other than Bernie Sanders, who will be holding a rally here in a few minutes. And we will be covering the remainder of this race. There are a lot of interesting people about, voicing interesting opinions, and we will see where it leads. So what motivated you to come to this event tonight?
Well, I really support Rob Quist. He understands the values of the Native Americans here in Montana and on the reservations and our values. So,
has he directed any particular messaging toward the Native American community that you've seen?
Yes, he has mentioned that he would help with the diabetes epidemic on our reservations, and that he's going to help rebuild our infrastructure on the reservations. So,
if you could summarize the nature of the diabetes problem, how would you put it in sort of a pithy way?
Well, I would say about like 3/4 of the Native Americans here are, diabetic.
So actually, you can see he's talking to real people, and that's one of the few things I do like about the TYT network. They have a couple reporters that are good, and she's talking about something that's very important. In fact, one of the few progressive causes that I do support, which is the rights of Native Americans. Although I have a different perspective on how those rights can be preserved.
His campaign. A lot of people will say, well, he's an interesting guy. He can play the guitar. He can sing. He's a poet. Wow, it's really cool. But he's not serious. He can't really win this election. Well, guess what? Just came back from Washington on Thursday. You have gotten the Republican leadership very, very nervous because they know that Rob's campaign has been a great campaign and that he is on the verge of pulling off a major, major upset. Now, I don't want to get you all very nervous, but the eyes of America, and actually the eyes of many people throughout the world, are looking right here at the great state of Montana and what's going to happen on Thursday.
Well, I'd just like to share a poem with you.
So the person on screen is the guy that Bernie Sanders was introducing. His name is Rob Quist. He was running for the position of U.S. representative from the state of Montana. Montana has only one state representative. And this guy is a Bernie Sanders fanatic, and he's a bluegrass singer, and he's a great former deadhead and whatever. So, perfect person for the Bernie fans. And I think I kind of got a certain vibe out of him based on what he's about to say next.
John Tester has been campaigning for me, and he said, Rob, when you speak to Billings tonight, would you recite that poem that you wrote? And so I'd like to recite it for you now. Montana. She's been called a lady when we sing her praise. And if you fail to see the logic, well then, let me count the ways. Her cirrus hair is red and gold at evening sunset's light. And I've always thought her mountains looked especially good and white. Her gown is luscious green when she attends the annual springtime ball. And she fancies orange and gold at harvest moon in the fall. Her wild and natural beauty, it will take away your breath. Oh, but just take her for granted. It could easily mean your death. She's slow to grant her favors to come lately, newer faces. To longtime suitors, she reveals her hidden, secret places. She lives in big-time splendor. She's the heart of the Golden West, and all manner of wondrous creatures live and suckle at her breast. And yes, there will be those who come with schemes of ways to use her, to sell her body like a harlot, to cheapen and abuse her. If you've sworn your love for her.
Okay, so That's enough. Actually, this kind of, on second hearing, it doesn't sound as creepy as the first time, and I get the poetic license here. It's still kind of weird, and more on him later. So, basically, like Bernie Sanders said, the whole nation was riding on this House race in Montana, a state that Democrats, to be honest with you, I don't think they really care about. They never campaigned there during the election, obviously, because Hillary Clinton's a moron. Bernie Sanders won it by a massive margin. I think it was in March 2016. Hold on, I'll check.
Revere.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders actually won the primary by a 51 to 44 split, and then he lost the unpledged delegates, so he ended up getting 12 delegates as opposed to 15 for Hillary Clinton. So he actually did very well in the primary, and they thought it would translate into great success for this election. So while that's going on, there's another battle going on within the Democrats, obviously, which I've already gone over, and it played out this week in California. California is the largest Democratic Party organization outside of the national organization in D.C., and a lot of the progressives, not all of them Bernie supporters, some of them were just, more left-wing Hillary supporters. They were trying to take over the party last weekend in Sacramento. And apparently there's been some voting irregularities and claims that the process was not all above board. And here was the reaction of the outgoing chair of the Democratic Party of California. I think his name is Eric Burton.
I just want to thank you very much. This was very enjoyable, actually. But I like the other sign to come out. I want to thank the people that do this, that interpret for Donald Trump. Now, all together, Donald Trump.
So that was their rally for this convention. It was, they took a deaf interpreter and basically they're using, he wanted to make sure that people knew that that's the message of the Democratic Party. It has nothing to do with actually improving the welfare of the people. It's all about fuck Donald Trump. Okay, at a different time during this convention, apparently Tom Perez and some other Democratic leaders were trying to speak before the delegates and convention goers, and they weren't really having it. So the outgoing chair, the same guy you saw in the previous frame, had some choice words for them.
Times in American history, hey, shut the fuck up and go outside, all right? Dangerous time of my lifetime. We have a president who is in, I don't know who he is, Putin or Trump. They're in a romance. This is really weird. He's trying to kill healthcare for people, but he doesn't like the name Trump Care. He says it's Ryan Care. You know what? Trump Care, Ryan Care, I'll tell you what it is. It's I don't care, because they don't give a shit, John Burton, about the people who they're hurting.
Okay, so you saw there that Tom Perez, basically, he did the same thing. He didn't offer anything in return to these people. He just said, basically, Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about us. It's I don't care instead of Trump care. It was an incoherent babble. And to be fair, Tom Perez has had a rough couple months since he became DNC chair. I kind of understand his frustration. I actually had an experience today where I was walking around a corner at the office, and I heard somebody I work with actually talking smack about me, and I did a 180. I was like, I'm not walking into this situation. And that's sort of going to come up later, not with me, but with somebody else in this whole narrative. So, but here, there's a story from today. It says, an open letter to the DNC chair. There's too much at stake to ignore black women. Today, black women activists, civic and community leaders, and elected officials penned an open letter to Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez calling for a meeting to discuss the state of black women and the party. Hold on, let me just put this a little more into perspective. Didn't really work, did it? Here we go. Black women have, dear Chairman Tom Perez, black women have consistently shown up for Democrats as a loyal voting bloc, demonstrating time and again that we are crucial to the protection of progressive policies such as economic security, affordable health care, and criminal justice reform. We have voted and organized our communities with little support and investment from the Democratic Party for mobilization efforts. We have shown how black women lead, yet the party's leadership from Washington to the state parties have few or no black women in leadership. More and more black women are running for office and winning elections with scant support from Democratic Party infrastructure. Well, like civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer, who testified at the 1964 Democratic Convention demanding blacks have a seat and voice within the party, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. The Democratic Party has a real problem. The data reveals that black women voters are the very foundation to a winning coalition. Yet most black voters feel the Democrats take them for granted. The party's foundation is a growing crack, and if it is not addressed quickly, the party will fall even further behind and ultimately fail in its quest to strengthen its political prospects. Investing in black women's political leadership is a solid return on investment, one that is rooted in facts and data. In recent years, black women have proven to be the most active voting demographic in the nation. In 2008 and 2012, 70% of eligible black women cast ballots, accounting for the highest voter turnout of any racial or gender group, proving that our voting power can and has determined elections. I don't think it really proves that, because we're still talking about a small proportion of the population, but whatever. A closer look at the data shows that in 2012, Barack Obama won re-election by 4.9 million votes. Black women cast a total of 11.4 million votes, providing the margin he needed to win. This past November, even with a clear lack of voter mobilization, in investment, and a decrease in overall black voter turnout, 94% of black women voted to keep this country moving forward by casting ballots for Hillary Clinton. In addition, on November 8th, we saw important elected official office gains by black women despite the otherwise dismal defeat of progressives during the general election. So then it goes on to talk about, all these people. And basically, Tom Perez is being blamed for everything and anything that's going wrong in the Democratic Party. Now, don't get me wrong. He is a lackey and a stooge for a bunch of corporate puppet masters that have him on their strings. So, yes, he is to blame for a lot of that. But Tom Perez did not start the collapse of the Democratic Party, and he's not going to solve it. He has virtually no power to do it. He's basically a captive of the more powerful leaders of the party, which are the Clintonistas, and that's about it for him. So continuing, let's go back to Montana. Remember that Rob Quist is the Democratic candidate. He was running against a guy named Greg Gianforte, or Gianforte, I don't know how you pronounce his name. And this guy had previously run for governor of Montana. And the Bernie-crats and the Democrats in general were banking on the fact that there's so much voter discontent and so many problems with the Republican Party and Donald Trump that even a state that's as red as Montana, which is basically as red as a rare steak, even they would be either at risk of a Democratic landslide, or the Democrats could at least come close. Okay, and they've been talking about it as if this is horseshoes, that they did it the same way in Kansas. I think in Kansas they had a special election in March, and the Democrats claimed that because they had a 5-point defeat to the Republicans in Kansas, they claimed that that was evidence of voter discontent with Donald Trump. Now I'll show that for the same reason that Kansas was a false narrative, Montana is a false narrative. But first, Mr. Gianforte actually he threw the Democrats a bone. He actually did something that was, to put it honestly, I don't know if people in Congress really need to do things like what he did on, I believe it was Tuesday, to a reporter.
Into the CBO score, because you were waiting to make your decision about healthcare until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what
we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
If you'd like me to get the hot up here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
So basically, what happened was this Guardian reporter, I think his name is Ben Jacobs. The Guardian is a British left-wing paper. It's actually in Manchester, England, just so you know. And, since I started this video, there's been more developments with that case and more problems with the world. But instead of talking about that issue, the Manchester Guardian sent a guy to Montana in order to interview the Republican nominee for the at-large district House seat for the U.S. House of Representatives, bearing in mind that nobody's ever cared about Montana, ever. It doesn't matter what party. This is complete and total posing right now. It's virtue signaling. They've never cared about the issues of Montanans. And I doubt that the Republicans have either. And this Gianforte guy, I don't really... If you've been listening to my channel, you know that I don't give the Republicans a break. I think this Gianforte might be just as bad as electing a Democrat, for example. I don't know much about him. And frankly, what he did here was he got into an altercation with this journalist. The allegations right now are that he assaulted and body slammed him. So the Democrats got a gift-wrapped package from the Republicans, specifically this guy, saying, hey, you want to knock me out? You want an easy pass at winning this House seat? If Gianforte had really thought about it, I think what he should have done was call the cops on this guy and have him escorted out for trespassing, if this is what happened. And if, this is something that the left always does. If you watch Tommy Robinson of the Rebel Media Network, he did this a couple times to Quilliam and other media networks. He would barge into their offices and turn their own tactics on them. And you know what happened? The police were summoned and they took him out of the building, but they couldn't answer his questions. What this guy could have done was at least get this guy arrested or whatnot. And instead, he got into an altercation, which I think is, legitimately worse than looking like a pussy on audio or video or whatever and not being able to answer a question. I actually think it was a fair question from the reporter, but I don't believe that the reporter would have given him a fair hearing for what he said. And it turns out that this reporter is a left-wing activist. He was a Hillary Clinton supporter, but that's besides the point. This was a gift-wrapped package for Rob Quist and Bernie Sanders and their Democratic, whatever you call them, henchmen. So it looked like, they were saying that the Republicans are set to lose, and we'll show you some headlines. Okay, here you have USA Today saying close Montana race could be Republicans' latest sign of trouble. This is the New York Daily News. They said the GOP is nervous over a tight race for the House seat from Montana. Sorry, I almost said Utah. There is a Utah special election coming up, but if they ever start saying that that's going to be a close one, I think it's fair for me to just laugh at them in advance. So the Democrats were all psyched up about it, and they were saying, you know, this is going to be the new wave, and it's a bellwether and whatever, and I've already gone over that. And what happened? So I love this image. Sorry, I have to look at this. This is his evil villain portrait, and I like sometimes, you know, how I was never a huge wrestling fan, you know, here and there, but there's always the people that go for the heel, and Greg Gianforte, as much as I don't want to support somebody who did such a stupid thing like he did, when they frame him like some sort of James Bond level villain, you know, you still have to be happy. That's why I always say, you know, the one thing that I like about Republicans, the one thing is that they drive Democrats insane, and this is no exception. So let's watch his victory speech right now, just for a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Montana. Tonight is all about you. Tonight is your victory. Over the last 2 years, you've made tens of thousands of phone calls. You've knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors.
Here's another statement, probably the only statement in this speech that I really thought was great.
Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi can't call the shots here in Montana. Montanans said, we're going to drain the swamp. And we have a lot of work to do. And hard work is the way we get things done. And sometimes hard work is born out of hard lessons. Last night, I learned a lesson. And no, please, I need to share something from my heart here. And I just ask you to bear with me. And when you make a mistake, you have to own up to it. That's the Montana way. Last night I made a mistake. And I took an action that I can't take back. And I'm not proud of what happened. I should not have responded in the way that I did. And for that, I'm sorry.
And you're forgiven.
Please. I should not have treated that reporter that way. And for that, I'm sorry, Mr. Ben Jacobs. I also want to apologize for the Fox News team that was there. And I'm sorry to each one of you that we had to go through this. That's not the person that I am, and it's not the way I'll lead in this state. Rest assured, Our work is...
Okay, I don't know if he was holding an onion under his eyes or something. I don't really care. You know, I don't think it's a good thing that somebody did this in order to a reporter, even if the reporter was an asshole. But I also don't care if he was sincere in his apology. I think when the voters have spoken, and in this case, it is the popular vote that wins. Yes, in the House election, the popular vote wins. So that's the rules. And Greg Gianforte, or whatever you want to call him, he is the legitimate new representative for the state of Montana. How you like that and them apples? So I'm going to switch gears here.
It's just beginning.
So before we go any further, I do want to talk about why the Democrats think that they actually made any gains here. It's really, if you look at these figures here, I can easily dispel that myth. And I saw the same thing back in March with the race in Kansas. And what the Democrats want you to look at is the percentages, okay? And I'm going to hover over it with my cursor if I can get it to work. Okay, they have a 50 to 44% gap in this, okay? That's a 6%. They're saying that if you look here on the left, okay, 56 to 40. So there's by their logic, it's a 10% swing. 10% swing in favor of Rob Quist and the Democrats and the progressives by connection. What they're saying is that 10% more people figured that it's better to vote Democratic than it is to vote Republican. Now that would make a lot of sense if you did not look at the total votes. Okay, the total votes in 2016, that's when Ryan Zinke, who's now the Secretary of Interior, and that's why we're having a special election, he won by a crushing 80,000 vote margin. Greg Gianforte won by a 23,000 vote margin. Sorry, 23,000 vote margin. And the total votes last year were 507,831. Whereas the total votes this year were, hold on, the total votes yesterday were 377,000. So you have 130,000 less people voted, and you're claiming that there was a 10% bump for the Democrats. That's not how it works. Let me tell you something. It's really easy to figure out what happened here. There's no such thing as this notion that people were, you know, maybe yes, there were probably a few people that were disappointed in Donald Trump, and they switched their vote to the Democrat Rob Quist or something, or maybe he swung him with his Randy song about the state of Montana and her mountains dressed in white. What a subtle... Montana does have a face, by the way. Look at this. I mean, it doesn't look like a woman's face. Maybe Montana's transgender or something. I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now. It must be that, you know, politics is taking us to strange corners, eh? But think about it this way. The Democrats threw everything they could into winning a race in a corner of the country where very little has really changed. Okay, there's almost, I mean, it doesn't show here, but I was looking at the map yesterday, the New York Times map of this election. Okay, and basically this map was roughly the same color as the map was in November 2016. And I'll tell you what accounts for this smaller gap. There's simply fewer people that want to go out and vote. Again, okay, people don't like to go out to vote. It's an inconvenience. You have to go to a polling center or mail it in. People hate using the mail. Okay, the Democrats are the only people that, you know, they try to swindle people into sending their vote by mail. Little do they know, all they have to do is they open up the envelope, see who you voted for, and if you voted for the wrong person, they just throw it in the trash. Okay, and they do it Okay, don't let them fool you into thinking, oh yeah, we're just helping you to vote. No, they're helping you to vote for the person that they're working for. Okay, and the people of Montana, they were willing to come out in November and vote in a national election. That's why there were 500,000 people that showed up. Okay, the state of Montana, just so you know, let's see how many people are in there. Montana has a total population of 1 million people. So, you know, deducting the kids, in November there was like pretty good turnout, you know. Pretty good turnout. So therefore, a lot of people turned out and they voted. You know, up to that, this was probably over 60% of people voted in November. And what people are failing to understand is that people, first of all, Montana, if you look at some of these precincts, for example, let's look at you know, some of these counties in Montana. Hold on. This is Phillips County, Montana, okay? Look at that space up here. Okay, it doesn't look like much because the screen is small, but it's a massive county. It has less than 5,000 people in 2015, sorry. And how many, you think people really want to drive? How many locations do you think they have for voting? How many precincts? Not that many, okay? So people are not going to make that special effort to go out and vote. In fact, a lot of people actually did early voting. So, you know, moving on from this subject, let's get back to the issue of the DNC intrigues and also the issue of how the Democrats are holding up this week in general, given what happened in Montana. So like I said, it's been a rough period for me, especially given the atmosphere of my job in the past few days. But news like this, it keeps me entertained. This Democratic Party is, for Ramon and Bold Like a Leopard, the best Democratic Party that I could possibly hope for, because they are fucking retarded. Here's a message to progressive people or Democrats, whatever you want to call yourselves. How about put together a fucking program as an alternative to the people that you hate? I don't care if you hate Donald Trump. It's not going to get nobody to vote for you. Okay, a lot of people hate Donald Trump, but they also hate you. You are literally dog shit right now. Nobody knows what the Democrats stand for. This Tom Perez goes around the country and he makes these tours and he says we're leading with our values and whatever. Here, I'll read off. I could show it on screen, but you know, I switched to the camera only. So it says here, Bernie Sanders backers say Democrats are in absolute crisis and denial. This from the Sacramento Bee from, I guess it would be, I think this was the 21st. So it was this week. They are a party in absolute crisis and denial, said Roseanne DeMoro, nurse and activist in the California Nurses Association, one of those commie unions they have out there. They are too comfortable. Inside the convention hall, DeMoro's nurses booed and heckled Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez. They repeatedly interrupted Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon. Activists marched to the historic mansion of Governor Jerry Brown protesting contributions from oil companies. Hold on. Let me mute this. Late Saturday, the party nearly elected as its chairwoman Kimberly Ellis, a liberal from outside the establishment who ran on redefining what it means to be a Democrat. The new chairman, Eric Bauman, was greeted with loud boos from her supporters. In the months since Donald Trump's unforeseen election, California Democrats have held up their liberal state as a fortress of the resistance, repeatedly invoking their efforts to address climate change, deliver health care to millions, and protect those in the country illegally. But emboldened activists who believe it's not enough to resist the Republican president are pressing for a shift further left in next year's elections, demanding that issues like income inequality universal health care, free community college and student loan debt forgiveness, affordable housing, and campaign finance reform be treated not as slogans but as litmus tests. So, leaving all that bullshit aside, I don't think that's going to hurt. That's not going to help either. Okay, the Democrats have and the progressives, by the way, too. So I'm talking to both factions. You have this delusion that just by coming in and weaseling around and claiming that you have everybody's interests in mind, that people don't know that you don't give a fuck about them. And I really do mean that. There's this campaign going on among progressives and Democrats to reach out to the red states. And on the surface, it's a good idea. But there's a few things that at the ground level they should do before they reach out to the red states. Number one, they should accept that the Second Amendment is part of the Constitution and inalienable. Number two, the Democrats should define as a national party how much taxation is enough on the consumer. Okay, you have to probably think of a rate collectively, local, state, and federal. How much is too much? Okay, people. Let me tell you something. Democrats always say that they just tax the rich, that they're only redistributing wealth from the rich to the poor. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of hogwash. Let me tell you why. Every fucking state where there's one of these baseball teams or any other of those pro sports teams, who pays for their facility? You, the taxpayer. And who's the people that they trot out in order to help them pay for this crap, this product that is garbage, overpriced entertainment that comes at your expense? The politicians from both parties. So that's just one example of a system where you have two puppets pretending to fight each other, and nobody has the courage to say, you know what? Fuck this. We need a system where the popular will, the direct democracy is reestablished. And if you think that all this whining about the Electoral College and how it stole the election for Donald Trump, if you think that that rings true, then maybe you should work towards it. Maybe you should, instead of invoking it every time that your candidate loses a federal election that way, loses it in court according to the rules, then you come out and you talk about leading with our values without actually knowing what they are. Maybe instead you should come up with a program for what the fuck you are going to do, and then you respect the people that disagree with you. You respect the states where people believe that fetuses have a right to life, that those are human beings, because your states don't believe that. Other states do believe that. Okay? That's my suggestion to the Democratic Party. There's people in the Democratic Party that honestly think that they have a better idea of what the voters need than the voters themselves do. Okay, and they believe that, and I actually heard Michael Tracy and it was a different TYT reporter say the same thing today, saying that these salt of the earth people, they're conservative and whatever, but they don't know what the fuck their real interests are. Bullshit. If they are a person with two neurons to put together, they can determine their own interests, and they don't need some progressive hippie in a fucking flannel shirt and skinny jeans to come over and tell them what their best interests are. Anyway, so this is Ramon, Bold Like a Leopard. I hope you enjoyed this compilation video. It's taken a while. It's been kind of hard this week due to the amount of work I had and just the aggravation I've had there. But I appreciate all the, even the few people that do show up and watch this, because this is kind of how I deal with the stress that I have, and that I don't end up like this guy that assaulted a Guardian reporter. So have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day. By the way, I have a holiday coming up next week. It's called Shavuos. That there won't be any videos on the 31st or the 1st of the month. So if I don't see you until then, although I am putting up another few videos this weekend, happy Memorial Day, or let's respect the lives of those who gave themselves to defend our liberty, as well as I hope that you have time to reflect on the fact that we had people that sacrificed themselves for you know, to define this country in our Civil War. Okay, and unfortunately, as I'm about to demonstrate in my next video, there are people who couldn't care less about that. They couldn't care less if there would be another Civil War, even though they've done everything that they could to create the conditions that are leading to one. So have a great weekend. I hope you don't dwell on that ominous thought and enjoy it with your friends and family. And hasta la vista.